So even though this is white fur, you can see you have to go pretty dark in order to make the nose bridge read correctly. And I'm just following along with this like swirl in the fur. I'm going to use the Polychromos black over here just because I want to be a little bit more precise with these short little hairs on the nose. Go over that with the white. Okay, so to figure out the mix for the pink of the nose, I want to play around just swatching out some colors here. So I've got white and Polychromos burnt ochre, and then magenta, Polychromos magenta, and white again. Let me try white with just the magenta. Okay, and then for shadow areas, Okay, so I was just going through here and working out, like swatching out what colors I want to use to mix the color for the nose. And so like I've done both like a light, like the main part of the nose, and then what the shadow, you know, the darker value portion should look like. So just sometimes I'll work through that, you know, the swatches just to, you know, on a separate sheet of paper, just to like make sure that what I'm thinking will work before I put it on my paper. Of course, I could do that in the beginning, but that seems silly. Where's the adventure? Okay, so what I figured out is the, oh, hold on, I'm going to bring the blue down here a little bit more. These little nose hairs are so cute. Okay, so Polychromos magenta. And bring some little flecks up in here. And just little circles so that I get a smooth texture. And some Polychromos burnt ochre, using very light pressure on both of these. And now heavy pressure with the white Prismacolor. More magenta here on the shadowy part or darker part, and a little bit of, what is this, crimson red Prisma. And black Prisma, all light pressure. And then white Prisma, heavy pressure. And really blend out this bottom edge. I'm going to go in with some Prismacolor Violet Blue here, build it up just a little bit darker. A little bit more magenta on top. And then heavy pressure with the white. Okay. Oh, there's no white there. Make sure to put white down here under the nostril. Make this a little darker. Using the Polychromos black. And while I'm here, I'll go ahead and define the side of the nostril here. Okay, I'm going to bring some of the Prismacolor violet blue down here, and magenta over the top, Polychromos magenta, and then blend out with white with heavy pressure. Got a little dark there, so a little extra white. Bring in some more magenta and a little bit of Polychromos burnt ochre and more white. Actually want Prismacolor black. And then blend out with Prismacolor white. I'm going to take some Prismacolor orange here and put some of that down inside the nostril along the edge here, and then go over it with some of the Polychromos magenta. And then Prismacolor black here to kind of soften this shadow. I'm going to buff that out with some of the Prismacolor white. And then go in and restate the nostril part with the Polychromos black. I have such a cute little nose. Extend the little pink part of the upper lip here, magenta and burnt ochre and white. Really soft layer of magenta here. And then white over the top. Okay, black Prismacolor. Build up some of these darks up in here. This part is in sharper focus, so I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to the hair direction. Okay, so this looks kind of flat here because there's a harsh line right here where it really should have some variation. So I'll cut into that with the slice tool later. I still need to go back and do the slice tool all over all of this, but just bring out some of the magenta for now. And I want to make this a little darker and a little more saturation as it goes back into the nostril there. Okay, come down here. I'm going to use the pink or the magenta Polychromos. And then Polychromos Light Ultramarine. Black Prismacolor. So somehow I managed, when I was working on this, to get like this little curve thing going in over here. So I want to fix that. I'm going to handle that really quickly. I think it's mostly just all black. I'm just going to work my way down here along the edge of this and darken it up a little bit more as it comes along the edge of the image here. And just kind of bring some hairs in to the white a little bit, or to, well, it's not really white, it's gray, but I just don't want to have a hard edge as I come around. I'm going to switch over. That was the Prismacolor black. I'm going to switch over to the Polychromos black now, so I get just a little bit sharper definition on my hairs as I bring them into the lighter areas. I'm going to use the Polychromos light ultramarine to work this back and forth a little bit. Just soften this transition some. And I always try and think of like the forms underneath the hair and the fur. Like this is a bony section here. This is part of the cat's cheekbone. And so I'm like imagining these hairs stretching over that bone, so that like in my brain, I'm almost sculpting this out or carving it out of the paper. I find that thinking of it in terms of 3 dimensions like that really, like, it just helps me remember to make the hairs go in the right direction as if they're like curving over that form. It really just kind of keeps me in the mind of this is a form that has depth and volume, and I don't know, it turns out better when I think like that. Okay, so now I'm going to take my slice tool and go in here and start pulling out some of the lights in here. And just kind of using the same type of stroke that I used for my pencils and putting in the hairs. I'm following along with the direction of the fur and what I see the hair doing. And I'm just pulling out some lighter colors in some of these spots. So I'm just cleaning off my blending stump here And then I'm gonna buff out some of these hair strokes that I just put in. I'm just going over them lightly with the blending stump just to, so that this doesn't stand out too much. I'm going to pull some hairs down into, or off the top lip down into the shadow underneath it. So I get that like fuzzy little mouth look there. I feel like this is making it dirty. So I'm going to switch over to a Q-tip instead. One of my little precision Q-tips. Some of the brighter pops, I'm going to go back in, the brighter white pops, I'm going to go back in and put those back in. Okay, I'm going to work on the whiskers a little bit more. So get them a little bit more defined here. And I'm going to come in and just kind of go along a couple of the whiskers, just really lightly and just a little bit to define them a little more. I'm going to take a white acrylic gel pen. Go in with this a little bit. This one isn't working great for me right now. See if the jelly roll works any better. That might work a little better today. I think we need the nose kind of handled a little bit more over here. So it's just going back in on the side of the nose here with some crimson red, blending it out with some white, and then coming in with some violet blue. Just kind of wanted to put in a little bit more obvious of a shadow here on the side of the nose. Warm up the shadow down here. This is black. This is the Polychromos black. So I'm trying to decide if I'm done or not. I'm not 100% certain. As you can tell, because I won't stop messing with it. So I think what I want to do is take a picture of it and load it into Google to do the collage thing. I go into Google Photos. And take this one and okay, so I'm going to say save and then edit. Okay, so my values aren't too bad. It could go a little darker in here, right? And along the side of the nose, you guys are having a hard time seeing that, but this could get a little darker. This could come out a little bit wider and darker here. And I could get a little darker in my eye, but overall, I don't think my values are off too much. Soften this up down here and bring this around a little darker down here. But what I am seeing is that my colors on my nose in particular, like these colors all in here, let me make this smaller, will it? The camera thing's in the way. All in here is a lot paler than it should be. Yeah, and I could have more value down in here and get this a little darker. So I am not done. Okay. So does that make sense? So instead of like just continuing to fuss with it and knowing that something's not quite right, I need to stop and go in and figure out what's not quite right because I'm adjusting the wrong things. So I'm just using some of the Polychromos black here along the side of the eye because I'm going to try and use like a gray and mix the white and the black to try and darken this up. Because if I just use the green, it's going to be too chromatic. And then come in with the, what is this, the grass green over the top of that black. I'm softening all of this up down here with the white. I have it too harsh. I think up on the nose I will switch over to the violet instead of just violet blue. I'm going to grab the magenta Polychromos here to pinken up this nose a little more. And burnish it out with the white Prismacolor. There's a little bit of crimson red in here too, just to warm things up a little. And then buff out with the white. And working that back and forth until I get it just right. And I just keep looking over my drawing to see what, what needs adjusting here to make it read correctly. Okay, so finally I'm gonna take my white Polychromos and just use that to go in and kind of restate these whisker lines. And get it sharpened to a really fine point, and you can just scrape out anything any color that's gotten down in your little dip. You're going to try and make sure you're going fairly straight up and down on the point though, otherwise it'll snap on you. And then there are a couple whiskers up here that I didn't get in. So now I feel like I'm done. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed that and you were able to learn a few new things along the way. I'd love to see your drawings. Go ahead and post them on social media and feel free to tag me at Stephanie Henry Art. Love to see what you did.